I wanted to look at something a little different today. We usually focus a lot on modern stuff, but I wanted to look at something a little bit different. A few years ago, I remember sitting in my office looking over old EX cards. You remember old EX cards, like the first appearance of EX cards? We're talking like Ruby Sapphire, Team Rocket Returns, all those older sets, the EX era of Pokemon, long before Black and White reintroduced them, XY reintroduced them, and now moving forward with Scarlet and Violet reintroducing them. I remember sitting in my office a few years ago and kind of looking at these EX cards, and I was like, wow, I really want to start buying some of these. I really want to start adding these to my collection. I want to start building some older decks, some retro decks, but they're just really starting to take off in price. And that was a few years ago. So over the past few years, I've been slowly adding these pieces to my collection, and it is moving so slow, but I'm talking about, like, all right, so here's a Swampert EX, there's a Lugia EX, Blastoise EX. These are just a few of the ones that I have. Mew EX. I have several copies of this Mewtwo EX because it is so big in competitive play back in the day. So this Mewtwo EX from Ruby and Sapphire, I had to add so many of them to my collection. Same thing with a lot of the evolutions like Jolteon EX, Umbreon EX, Espeon EX, Vaporeon EX. Those were big in, I think, 2006 competitive play. They made a lot of noise at the World Championships. I know Jimmy Ballard took it to a second place finish. So building that deck. We got Lapras EX, Kyogre EX. Look at that Golem EX. It looks so cool. And Raichu EX. I just pulled out a small sampling, but you have to let me know in the comment section down below which ones you have that are your favorite, which ones you want to collect, what you think of these older era EXs. It's so simple, right? But look at, just the artwork on them, the backgrounds on them, just it brings back so much nostalgia, and I absolutely love them. So we are looking today at EX cards. We haven't spent a whole lot of time. Some of these have really gone up in price over the past year. They've done an extremely good job of appreciating in value. Some of them have actually come down quite a bit. So definitely an area of, definitely a niche in the hobby that you might want to start looking at, that you might want to focus some attention on if you're kind of getting sick of modern cards, or you're getting sick of, some seal collecting, whatever the case may be. Maybe you look at some EX cards because a lot of them are starting to come down in price from where they were, kind of hit all-time highs during the pandemic. But we're focusing on some of the ones that are just absolutely exploding in price. Starting off with this Magmar EX from Ruby and Sapphire. It's a beautiful looking card. You can see what it's done over the past year. So in May of 2022, that's where it hit a one-year low. It was sitting at 22.55. But if you look, it's gained over 40% throughout the rest of the year, sitting at a one-year high right now of $31.17. We spent a lot of time talking about organic growth and natural growth. That's definitely what's happening here with Magmar EX. A lot of these EX cards definitely following a very natural and organic growth pattern, but look what it's done over the past year. Very positive, heading in the upward direction. Same thing with Sneasel EX. You can see it's kind of leveled off now over the past few months, but at one point in time in February of 2022, about a year ago, it was at $28.65. Not too bad. That's a one-year low for that Sneasel EX. This is from Ruby and Sapphire as well. Kind of leveled off right around that $30 mark for a couple months before starting to take off a little bit. Not as many clean copies in existence for a lot of these EXs, what you see from current modern cards, but you can see very steady growth up until about October, where it kind of leveled off a little bit. It hit a one-year high of $40.75. It's come back down a little bit, but still sitting at $38.19. That's about a 40% growth over the past year as well. Scyther EX, this one is also from Ruby and Sapphire. This one's a very cool looking card. Very level for the first half of 2022. From February all the way up until July, it was right around a one-year low of $43.37. It's gained about $13, so about 25% through the back half of 2022 up until 2023. You can see at the end of December in 2022, it hit a one-year high of 56.01. That's where it's currently stabilized at right now. And then we've got the Claydol EX. This one's super cool. It's from Power Keepers, but really steady growth throughout the past year. Not a whole lot of sales, but definitely moving in the upward direction. And there's so many EX cards that you can kind of look at, kind of pick and choose which ones might be your favorite. You're looking at about 20% growth over the past year for this one, sitting at $37.10 currently, just off of its one-year high of $37.95. But you can see where it started the year at back in February of 2022, one-year low $30.74. The Hitmonchan EX, this one is also from Ruby and Sapphire. At the beginning of 2022, it was at a one-year low of $33.71. Kind of spiked relatively quickly. You're looking in June before it really jumped up to about $45, $46. Then in July, hit a one-year high of $47.80. $82. It had a little bit of a valley in November of 2022 where it dropped right around $40, but kind of gained a little bit of that back. It's sitting at $43.65 currently, so still well closer to a one-year high than a one-year low. Over 30% of growth over the past year as well for that Hitmonchan. Flygon, very slow, steady growth over the past year. This one has done extremely well. You're looking at about 70%, 60% growth over the past year. $45.19 is where it's currently sitting. This one is also from Power Keepers. Its one-year high, which it hit at the beginning of 2023, was $48.15, but still way above its one-year low, which it hit at the beginning of 2022 when it was down to $31.66. Unfortunately, they didn't have like an EX logo that I could find, so this is the new EX logo at the top if anybody is noticing that. Couldn't really find anything to stick out to try and spiff up the presentation a little bit. Lapras EX, we kind of looked at that one before in my pile here. This one is also from Ruby and Sapphire. I really collected a lot of these when it first came out, and unfortunately I ended up selling off a lot of them to help pay for my wedding ages ago. But in July, this one hit a one-year low of $38.29. It actually started off 2022 in a downward trend and hit that one-year low in July of 2022 where it hit $38.29, and then kind of skyrocketed after that. So you can see some large growth patterns in September, October, November, and December before it capped out at a one-year high, which is where it's currently sitting right now, $47.98. But still, you're looking at about 25% of growth just over the past 6 months for this Lapras EX. Then we've got Swampert EX. We also just looked at that one. That one is from Crystal Guardians. $69.99 was its one-year low, which it hit in February 2022. This one was in some competitive builds. But you can see it growing up a little bit in May and June before dropping back down to about $70 in July, and then kind of starting to see a little bit more steady growth without as many valleys. It's sitting at $81.22 currently. That's about 20% growth over the year. That's a one-year high, and it's kind of leveled off at that point currently. Latios EX, this one is from EX Dragon. Very, very cool looking card. You can see very consistent throughout pretty much all of 2022. In February or March of 2022, it hit a one-year low of $53.77. Kind of climbed up a little bit, stayed right around that $55 mark until October, where it jumped up to closer to that $60 mark. And then in December, it shot up past that $70 mark. It's sitting at $70.56 currently. That's a one-year high for this one. Again, you're looking about 30% growth on that Latios EX. Magcargo EX also seeing quite a bit of growth over the past year. In February of 2022, it hit a one-year low of $21.64. I just love these cards. The sparkling border, it's really, really cool. $21.64 in February of 2022 before starting its rise. Very slow, consistent climb up until July where it kind of shot up and then it kind of leveled off a little bit. So sitting at $31.04 currently. That's just off of its one-year high of $31.74, which it hit in July, and then looks like it approached very closely again in December. This one is from EX Dragon as well. Mew EX, this one is from Holland Phantoms. There's several different Mew EXs. The biggest one is probably the one from Legend Maker. That's probably the biggest one from competitive play. But the Mew EX here from Holland Phantoms, very cool looking card. You can see it hit a one-year low in July where a copy sold for $128.23. Not huge growth over the past year. You're looking at about 15% growth, but definitely starting to trend in that upward direction. You get some pretty crazy expensive, a lot of these EXs starting to pass that $100 mark. This Mew EX hit $144.14 in January of 2023. It's backed off a little bit, but still sitting at $139.62 currently, so much closer to a one-year high than a one-year low. Then we've got this Golem EX, which we just looked at earlier as well. $25.59 was its one-year low, which it hit in May of 2022. Kind of stayed fairly consistent for the first half of 2022 and then started rising consistently, naturally, organically, up until December where it kind of leveled off. You can see it hit a one-year high in December of $36.24, sitting at $35.97 currently. Latias EX, this one is also from Dragon, much like the Latios EX that we looked at before. Definitely trending in the upward direction. This one is a very, very nice looking graph. You can see in May of 2022, it hit a one-year low of $50.79. It's gained about $25, so about 50% growth over the past year. Very consistent. It hit $77.99 in December. It's backed off a little bit, sitting at $77.49 currently, but still much closer to a one-year high than a one-year low. The Jirachi EX from Crystal Guardians, very cool looking card. In May, it hit a one-year low of 46.34. Started to climb up a little bit. You can see in August it really peaked, and then October it hit a one-year high of $90.94. It's backed off a little bit, but still almost doubled in price. You're looking at about 50% growth over the past year. 85.38 is where it's currently sitting. Gengar EX, definitely one of my favorite cards, one of my favorite EXs. It's absolutely gorgeous. Had a little bit of competitive connotations associated with it. 166.70 is its one-year low. It hit in May of 2022 before starting to climb a little bit, leveled off a lot between July all the way up until December, and then started to climb even more. So sitting at $275 currently. I want to say that's about 30% growth over the past year, but that's a little bit tougher to do the math in my head. Wailord EX, this was a big one when Sandstorm first came out. A lot of people bought up multiple copies of these, playing this competitively. At one point in time in May, it was at $58.51. That was a one-year low for it. Started to climb a little bit, leveled off between the months of July and November before starting a much steeper climb and hit $72.75, which is where it is currently at. That's a one-year high for the Wailord EX. There are so many great EXs to look at. Obviously, there's Charizard EX, Blastoise EX, which we saw before, all the evolutions. There's a lot of really, really cool ones out there. I highly recommend taking a look at some of these EX era sets if you haven't already. Even some of the holographic cards, the artworks are absolutely beautiful. They did holographic cards a lot better back then than what they do now, what they've done throughout Sword and Shield, even Sun and Moon. So very, very pretty cards that you can take a look at if this is a different area of the niche. Maybe, like I said, you're sick of Modern, or you want to get into something else, or you want to add to your collection and kind of get away from Sealed for a little bit. That's the great thing about Pokemon, is that there's just so many different areas that you can kind of study and look at, and these EXs have really started to take off in a lot of different areas. But like I said, there's some that I've backed off quite a bit, so not a bad time to start looking up pricing on them and start really maybe expanding your collection a little bit. I hope you enjoy the content. If you do, hit that subscribe button down below, leave a like and a comment. It does go a really long way for the algorithm. Share the channel out there. We are closing in, charging to that 100,000 subscribers. We passed 92,000, so tomorrow we're going to do another giveaway. I'm not sure what it's going to be yet, but I think it's going to be Cosmic Eclipse. Maybe I'm spoiling it. Oh well. Thanks so much for everything, guys. I will see you tomorrow. Until then, peace.